Hello, humans, and welcome to the Intuitive Marriage Method. It's here that I like to talk about intuition, self love, and marriage, and a little bit of woo. Because, let's be honest, unless we make some changes for ourselves, then our relationship won't, right? It just won't change until we do. So, anyways, I'm a little bit witchy, sometimes a little bit bitchy. But I'm here as a self love advocate. And after surviving domestic violence, after spending years, um, working on myself, going to therapy, um, discovering my intuition, and after all that, finding my happily ever after in my second marriage, I it's been my passion to inspire and empower married women to tune into their own intuition through self love and guidance through the 12 foundations that I've created so they can create a deeper, more aligned, joyful life and a marriage that they can feel good about. So I hope you stick around. And by the way, my name is Amanda Pott, and I'm a certified life coach and intuitive empath and marriage mentor. So, and welcome back if you aren't new here. So glad that you're here. So today's episode is actually a really important one. Just put my readers on here so I can see. Because I'm finally going to walk you through the intuitive marriage method and what it actually is and the 12 foundations to a thriving marriage. And I want to say this right out of the gate. This is not just a bunch of woo. Like, yes, I know I love my witchy stuff and, I'm portray myself as a witch and all that kind of fun stuff. I'm very intuitive. And I do believe that's a big part of it. But there's a lot of actual real stuff to it. So it's not just a bunch of woo. Sorry to disappoint though. Now listen. Okay, so as you know, I love all things woo. I believe in energy. I believe in intuition. I believe in alignment. Um, but this work that I do, it is also very deeply practical. It's real life, it's real relationships, real patterns, real communication, and real healing. So this is the work that actually changes marriages. Now, before I get into the foundations, I want to share a little bit about why I created this because it didn't just come from a textbook, it actually came from my life. Now, there was a time in my life where I completely lost myself in relationships, and that meant that I would mold into the person that I was with. I'm wondering if any of you can relate to that. You just kind of pick up their bad habits or you start your own bad habits and you just kind of maybe you shrink a little more, maybe you adjust, you bend, um, you know, you you just slowly become someone that maybe you weren't in the beginning of the relationship. And it's not always a bad thing. But then sometimes those things you kind of just lose yourself and you know, you wouldn't maybe I wouldn't voice my concerns or I'd go against some of my own morals just to keep the relationship going. It was just easier in the moment or the situation. So you just kind of bow down to that. I ignored my own values. I ignored my own needs. And honestly, I was ignoring my own intuition, my internal alarm, my warning system, my gut feelings, my spidey senses, as I call them. And that's a huge one. You know, I remember feeling those feelings, those gut aches, that nervousness, that not really understanding why I kept feeling the way I was. And I always get a lot of images. So I'd have just mixed images and feelings going on. Wasn't really aware of what that was. So I definitely ignored it. But looking back now, my intuition was always there. It was always whispering, it was always nudging, it was trying to guide me, but I didn't trust it or I didn't even recognize what it was for what it was at the time. I would second guess myself. I would override that inner knowing. I would tell myself I was overthinking or being too sensitive or dramatic. Sound familiar? Hmm. So instead of listening to myself, I abandoned myself. And when you abandon yourself long enough, you forget. You forget who you are. You forget, you lose your voice a little bit. You forget what some of your goals were. You lose your clarity, your sense of what actually matters to you. And at some point, I had to stop and I had to ask myself, like, who am I? Like, and what exactly is it that I want for my life, my future? What do I stand for? And everything kept bringing me back to myself, self love, learning to have self trust, self awareness. Because if you don't know yourself, then how can you communicate what you need? And then how can you set your expectations? How can you create boundaries? How can you trust your own decisions? You can't build a strong, healthy marriage or on a version of you that is disconnected from yourself. And that's exactly why I created the intuitive marriage method. It was actually a blueprint for myself. I still really wanted my husband to like me and become the best version of who I am and who I want to be. And it's fluid, it's constant. I'm constantly working on it to this day. Always bringing back to myself. You pick up bad habits, you start, eating better, you start exercising or moving more, doing things for yourself, and then you just kind of fall off and you realize, oh, I'm feeling like not great again. And you realize you've stopped doing some of those things that you had put in place for yourself. So it's a constant thing. But when you truly do lose yourself, and you love your husband and you love your marriage, but there's just something you're not feeling like you're living a full, joyful life. And so this is what I created this for myself. And at the time I was going through a coaching program, I was learning to actually become a health coach, like it's a health and life coach. I'm dual certified. And I was empowering women to take better care of their health and whatnot. Um, but it ended up switching over where I loved the relationship aspect of it. And I started to put myself in that position where I wanted to always be my best self. And I've always started with self love. And so the 12-week program is basically a coaching program. It's over like a 12-week kind of series. So I created the 12 foundations to help me stay on board with, transformation. And I think I had 9 at first. And then I added 3 more that were really important to me. So we will go over those shortly, but just wanted to bring that to your attention. I actually made it for myself first. And it's a blend, the intuitive marriage method, it's a blend of self awareness, emotional intelligence, communication, and intuition. It teaches you how to understand yourself first so that you can understand your partner and your relationship on a much deeper level. And inside my 12-week program, The Worthy of Love, this is exactly what we do. We don't just skim the surface, we go deep. They're intuitive sessions. So when I hold a session for someone, um, it's very much, I get downloads, images, I get a sense and a feel of what's actually happening. And it's in a way, though, that is very grounded, it's very practical and actually applicable to your everyday life. And I go through and, we always go through, it's just very intuitive. It's an intuitive session where my client will usually take me through where they're going, but we always have sort of a guideline of what we're following. And I'll get into that again shortly, soon, and shortly, soon. Um, soon, shortly. So let me walk you through how the 12 foundations and my mentoring program works. This isn't a sales pitch whatsoever. I just wanted to explain to you how the 12 foundations work and what it is for me and why it's so important that it's very transformational for someone that's going through it. At the beginning, we start with my marriage wheel assessment, and you can also find that through the link in my bio. It gives you a really clear picture of where your relationship is thriving and where it needs support. So sometimes that alone is eye opening. Now, because we think we know, Um, but we actually look at it, we realize, oh, like, oh, okay, so I really wasn't holding my own on this, or we aren't really strong in this area. And part of the assessment wheel is there's some really good reflection questions in there. They go pretty deep. So take some time and do it. I do feel that, after you've done this, you will gain a lot of great insight into where your marriage is or where you need some help. And mostly we already know what areas this kind of just brings to light. So you can find that. It's free. Just download that in the link there in the bio. But we do hone in on those 2 to 3, but we touch base on all 12 over the 12 weeks. So it's kind of like, um, we just go over the ones that need the most attention, but the ones that you feel called to work on. That's the beautiful part, is that they are all kind of intertwined. And so even though we are just focusing on 2 to 3 at a time, all 12 of them are connected. So when we naturally touch on everything, it's like a ripple effect. Um, like, honestly, it's kind of like its own ecosystem. I know that sounds weird, but everything affects everything. So, for example, the first foundation is self love. But if we're talking about, trust, then it goes back to self love because, do you trust yourself? How much do you love yourself? What's in the past, the things that have been going on in your life? And so everything sort of touches on any situation in your life. You can kind of go through all 12 of them. Um, it will make a little more sense as we sort of go along. Okay, so let's walk through the 12 foundations. And as you listen, um, or watch on YouTube, I'm hoping to have some slides up. So hopefully I will. If not, I apologize. I just want to get this out here as well. Okay, so we're going to walk through them. As you listen, just see what resonates with you in your own life for yourself, as well as your for your marriage. Foundation 1 is self-love. So this would be like week 1 in my program. This is where everything begins. We go deep into understanding your self-worth, how you speak to yourself, how you care for yourself, and how you show up for yourself. Because your relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. If you don't trust yourself, you won't trust your decisions. And if you don't value yourself, you will tolerate things that you shouldn't. Self love is the foundation of everything. Foundation 2, so week 2 is communication. And we're not just talking like actual communication. It's like we go into effective communication strategies, active listening, and learning how to respond instead of react. And because, let's be honest, not a lot of us were taught how to communicate in a healthy way, depending on our past and our childhood, how we were programmed, whatnot. So we deep dive into that. Foundation 3, or chapter 3, it's going to be a book. So week 3 is expectations. And this one is huge. I do have a podcast episode basically explaining how unmet expectations is the silent killer of a marriage. And so many relationships do struggle because of unspoken expectations. We assume our partner should just know, and then we get upset when they don't. We work on identifying, what you need, what you desire, and how to communicate that clearly so there's no more guessing games. And foundation 4, or week 4, is accountability. And this is where things get real. Taking responsibility for your actions, your words, your energy, and your role in the relationship dynamic. That's that can be very powerful. There's a lot of shadow work going on that week for sure. It's not about blame though; it's about ownership and taking accountability. Foundation 5, or week 5, is boundaries. And boundaries are not just about pushing people away; they are about honoring yourself. We talk about how to set them, how to maintain them, and how to respect each other's individuality. Because a healthy marriage is not just about um, losing yourself, It's about staying grounded in who you are being. Oh, sorry, let me repeat that. Because a healthy marriage is not about losing yourself. It's about staying grounded in who you are while being connected to your partner. Foundation 6 is fun. So over week 6, yes, we talk about fun. I know lots of us as adults, lots of the conversations I have with the women that I do talk to in regards to relationships and things, and this is friends or clients, is they don't understand what fun is. Like, I don't even know what fun is anymore because they're raising kids. They've lost, what some of their own passions and desires are. So I'm going to say this very, very much with love. You have to bring laughter back into your marriage if you don't have it. It's extremely important. Um, I didn't laugh for many years, and my husband Barry, in his past marriage, spent years not laughing either. And it's not good. It's not good for your health, but it's life is heavy enough as it is. So your relationship should be a place of joy, connection, and playfulness. Find out some new adventures that you'd like to try. What does your inner child want to try? Um, Barry and I, we sing karaoke. We go out to those karaoke bars. We do a lot at home. We spent and invested money on good equipment so we can enjoy it and have a great time doing it at home. And that's what we call fun. And we spend time with friends and have bonfires, spend time with our grandkids, game nights with our kids. Those things are all fun. And just what brings you joy. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's just sitting out in the sun for a little bit. It doesn't have to be, going on an adventure or costing a lot of money. Just what brings you joy, what feels like fun for you. Foundation 7 is trust. We talk about building trust, maintaining it, and healing it when it's broken, because trust is not just about loyalty, it's about emotional safety. Now, that was loud. Sorry. Foundation 8 is energy. And here is where people go, okay, Amanda, now we're getting a little woo. Um, and yes, a little bit, but stay with me. Your energy is your presence. Sorry. Your energy is your presence, it's your mood, it's your emotional state. And whether you realize it or not, it affects everything. We work on how to become aware of it, how to regulate it, and how to shift it because energy is felt before words are even spoken. You bring the energy to the room. How do you want to set the tone for that moment in time? So it's a little bit woo, but there's a lot more to it. Foundation 9 is perspective. This is how you see, this is about how you see your partner and your relationship. We work on shifting negative thought patterns, practicing gratitude, and creating a more empowering perspective because your perspective shapes your experience. This is a big one too. Um, we just finished up with a client of mine, and perspective was huge. And it was such a transformational change when you get a chance to look at it from just a different perspective. Oh, that sounds too weird. How many times can I say that word? Anyways, that's what we deal with on and during week 9. Foundation 10, week 10 is intimacy. And this is not just about physical. This is emotional closeness, vulnerability, connection, and feeling safe to be seen. We explore what intimacy means to both of you and how to deepen it. We talk about the 5 love languages and, what um, kind of like a play menu sort of thing, what we talk about. And we kind of get down deep and dirty. We can if you want. So that's week 10. And foundation 11 is intuition. This one's very, very close to my heart. As you can see, my crystal from my mama. Um, because this is something I actually did ignore for a very long time. I've always known I've just known. I have just a different sense of knowing. And if you're intuitive, you understand that. You know just because you know. You don't understand why you know or how you know, you just know. So I always knew it was a little different. And interesting experiences as a child. Um, but your intuition is your inner knowing, and it's always there. We all have intuition. Some of us are skeptics, some of us don't really understand what it is or what to look for. And that's where I was at. So, 11 is intuition. Because if you don't trust yourself and you don't trust, your inner feelings, your inner gut senses, then you're not going to trust your intuition because it's going to be foreign. It's not going to be aligned with what you understand it to be. So we work on reconnecting to that voice, learning how to recognize it and using it to understand your partner and your relationship on a deeper level. And foundation 12 is empathy. And this is where everything softens. Empathy is about understanding your partner without judgment. It's about putting yourself in their shoes and creating space for compassion. And let me tell you, empathy can completely change the way that you navigate conflict. Put yourself in those partner's shoes. So, of yours and, vice versa. So it makes a big difference. Now, here's the truth. These foundations are not separate. They do build on each other. They support each other, they strengthen each other, and that is why this work to me is so powerful. I spent a lot of years, 3 or 4, going on 5 now, just going over these and rehoning them and making sure they're in the right order and that it made sense to me. And I just find it so very powerful when I do get the opportunity to take someone through the program or, just have conversations with them about what's going on in their marriage. And because it's not surface level, it is very transformational. So if you're listening to this and it's something's resonating with you, um, you know, you don't need to fix everything overnight. Okay. Your awareness, just be aware that your awareness is speaking to you. To start getting quiet. Put your damn phone away. Um, you've probably heard my other episode, but I'm doing how to break up with your phone. And I've been turning my phone off a lot more. And I've got um, just some boundaries put in with some of my apps. And it's been incredible. I've had a lot more quiet time. And I find when I get quiet, that inner voice really sparks up and tells me a lot of stuff. That's when I get creative and ideas and my thoughts and things like that. And I journal a lot too. So, because I do have a lot of swimming thoughts going through my head. Now, just you don't have to fix everything overnight. That's not how life works. Just know that, bring more awareness to yourself, become more aware of how you're feeling, your energies, how much time you take for yourself, how your communication is with your husband. And everything does come back to self. We always have to check ourselves. When you love yourself, you trust yourself, and you understand yourself, you change the way that you show up in your marriage. So if this spoke to you, I'd love to hear your comments. And I invite you to check out the marriage wheel, um, and see what areas you could use some more TLC in your marriage. I'd love to hear back from you. I'm offering a 30-minute, just a complimentary call, clarity session, just to go over your assessment if you like and put you in the right direction. And I'd love to chat if you're up for it, because you are worthy of love. And so my next episode is actually going to talk about that. So I'm excited about that and why I'm doing this and who I am. And I'll tell a little bit about my story. So thank you for being patient and going through this with me in this new little journey on my YouTube. So, anyways, stay intuitive, stay in love, and we'll chat again very soon. Bye for now.